Have you ever wondered what lies on the other side of death? What if in that afterlife someone could see not only what lies beyond life, but the future of all humanity? In this video, you will hear the shocking story of Aaron Whitaker, an American engineer who died for 7 minutes and came back with a shocking revelation. In 2025, something is going to happen in the world, a spiritual and political collapse that has already begun in the invisible backstage of reality. He saw a room with an empty throne, leaders like Trump and Putin as pawns in a cosmic game, and a voice that said, "The tear in the sky is about to begin, and no one will come out unscathed. Get ready for a breathtaking testimony that will shake your mind, your faith, and your perception of time." Leave your like, subscribe to the channel for more reports like this, and write here in the comments which city you are watching from. Let's map this network of awakened consciousnesses together. My name is Aaron Whitaker. I'm 38 years old and I was born in Tallahassee, Florida, but I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. In October 2022, my life ended for 7 minutes. And when I say it ended, I'm not talking about something symbolic. It's not poetry. I really died. Complete cardiac arrest, straight ECG, doctors screaming, body unresponsive. And it was in that interval between two worlds that I discovered a truth that still keeps me awake at night. The world will change drastically in 2025, and not because of elections or global warming, but because of something much bigger, something that has already begun on the invisible plane. That day, I was returning from a meeting downtown. I've always been a skeptical, rational guy, involved with data and numbers. I've been working in nuclear engineering for over a decade. No room for religion, prophecy, or spiritual journeys, but death, it didn't ask permission to enter. I got into the car with a strange pain in my chest, as if an invisible weight was pressing down on my bones from the inside out. I ignored it. I thought it was stress. Minutes later, on the interstate highway, I passed out. My car hit the guardrail, airbags deployed. According to the medical report, between the impact and the arrival of the paramedics, my heart stopped for 7 whole minutes. But what I experienced in those 7 minutes does not fit into human logic. I found myself out of my body. I was above the road looking at my own car, crushed, my body limp like a broken puppet. There was no panic, just a strange lucidity. Time seemed frozen, and then slowly, the scenery around me began to fade, as if reality were being dissolved layer by layer. The asphalt disappeared. The sky turned into a vibrant white void. It was not the sky with clouds. It was the sky of consciousness, a place where thoughts become matter. It was there that I felt the presence. He appeared without warning. A silhouette made of dense light, like a fire that doesn't burn. It had no face, but the energy was so intense that my soul seemed to shrink before it. And at the same time, something inside me wanted to run towards that presence like a child recognizing a father after millennia. "Aaron," he said, without a mouth, without a sound, but with a voice that filled me inside, as if echoing within my own DNA. "You are seeing what has been hidden, because it is time for some to know." I tried to speak, but I had no voice. I tried to move, but I was pure spirit. All I could think was, what? What's about to happen? And then he showed. Images exploded around me like living holograms. Cities in flames. Tanks crossing borders. Men in underground palaces making decisions that seemed to trigger earthquakes. And then 2 faces stood out. Donald Trump, with a stern expression, and Vladimir Putin kneeling before a bleeding globe. "The time of balance has been broken," the being said. 2025 will mark the beginning of a new configuration of the Earth. Politics will be only surface. What is coming is spiritual warfare, and the fuse has already been lit. At that moment, the space around me trembled. I could feel the vibration in the depths of my soul. It wasn't a prophecy. It was an observation. Still floating above my body, I watched the paramedics trying to revive me. But that scene was just a distant memory, like watching your own life through thick glass. What surrounded me now was adamantine, without weight, without ground, without time. a space where everything was made of presence. The light around me pulsed like a living heart. It was warm, but not burning, soft, but intense. And in the midst of that light, that presence returned. Didn't walk, didn't float, simply era, as if it had been there forever, waiting for me to finally see it. "Aaron," he said again, without using words, but with a vibration that filled every part of my being. "You are between the end of one cycle and the birth of another." At that moment, the space around me began to bend. It was as if reality was being turned inside out. I saw not with my eyes, but with something deeper, as if my soul had received new senses. I was taken to a place that seemed to be above the earth, but it wasn't the physical orbit. It was like seeing the planet from a spiritual distance, wrapped in threads of energy, connections, colors, inaudible sounds. And then I saw it. Red lines appearing over the globe, connecting capitals, military bases, zones of tension. What begins in 2025 is already written in the invisible field. War is not created, it is activated. And then, as if he laid his hand upon my mind, images exploded inside me. Cities collapsing, leaders alone in front of screens, and at the center of it all, two gigantic figures, Trump and Putin. But there was something strange. They were surrounded by shadow, but their shadows were not evil. They were complex, deep, full of weight and mission. They are neither heroes nor villains. They are instruments, and the fuse has already been lit. Time around me distorted again. Now I saw symbols floating in the air, like sacred mathematics, like algorithms of a cosmic mind. I saw the number 2025 repeated several times, followed by one word: unleashing. I tried to ask triggering of what, but there was no more thought, no more language. There was only inner recognition, as if my soul knew what it meant, but was not yet allowed to remember clearly. The only certainty I was given at that moment was this: you have been called to see, because the time of choosing is approaching. I was pulled again. I didn't walk. I didn't fly. It was like being transported by a higher will. When the light dissipated, I was inside a colossal structure, a temple made of sound and light, with living columns and an invisible roof. Wings inside, everything vibrated with an overwhelming solemnity. And I realized this was the place where truths are kept, not human ones, eternal truths. In the center of the hall, a circle of luminous beings remained in absolute silence. 13 chairs, 7 occupied, 6 empty. Each entity seemed to contain the weight of centuries, as if they were living archives of creation itself. They didn't look at me, but they knew I was there. So, in the center of the hall, a globe of the earth floated above a crystal pedestal. Codes swirled around the planet like the rings of Saturn, dates, names, frequencies. And amidst these codes, a point shone with unbearable intensity: 2025. "When this seal is broken, time will no longer be as it was before," said one of the presences, in a voice that seemed to be made of thunder and mist. At that moment, I saw a black box appears under the globe. It wasn't made of metal. It was made of spiritual density, an artifact sealed with layers of light and sound. Even without touching it, I felt a call coming from within her, but also a warning. Not even angels can open this box. It will only be accessed by a human, and that will change everything. It was then that I saw faces appear around the room, projections, visions, possibilities. Among them, Trump and Putin again. But now they were accompanied by other hidden figures invisible to the world. The angel appeared beside me again and said, "They are in the scene, but they are not the script. The script was written before they were born." I looked at the box and felt that within it was the spark of collapse and renewal, a spiritual mechanism that would be triggered by human choices, collective and individual. It was like a light bomb. When opened, would expose all the hidden lies and no one would come out unscathed. In that space outside of time, the angel took me to another plane. Everything went dark, but it wasn't darkness. It was a sacred void. A threshold between worlds. There nothing existed, except the sound of the universe itself breathing. Before the world changes on the outside, it will shake on the inside, said the angel. And then I was thrown into a sequence of visions, not as an observer, but as a part. It was as if my soul was passing through the backstage of time, an invisible line of fire crossing the planet. It did not burn the skin, but it set fire to the internal structures. Countries collapsing, not from bombs, but from spiritual disintegration. People confused, lost, as if they had woken up from a dream without knowing where they were. And then I saw the date, 2025. Written not in ordinary numbers, but in a living language that vibrated within me, the same language of creation. I understood that that date was not a moment, it was a portal, and that this portal would be crossed by everyone, whether they wanted to or not. Trump and Putin appeared once again, but now in the background. In the foreground, I saw ordinary, people anonymous, men, women, children. Each one was a mirror of the collective. Each soul, a trigger. Time is not a line. It is a mirror, and 2025 will be the day the mirror breaks. At that moment, I saw what seemed to be the pinnacle. Spiritual flash sweeping across the planet, not destruction, but unveiling. I saw churches closing, governments crumbling, but at the same time, hearts lighting up, as if for the first time, the world saw, without filters. You are not here to stop it. You are here to witness it, because every birth needs someone to see the light come. Before I could ask more, everything went black. And I knew the return was near. What I had seen needed to be told, but only up to here. The rest would be activated in due time. Still immersed in that divine limbo between death and return, I felt myself being taken deeper, as if there were layers within the beyond, and I was passing through portals that only opened to souls temporarily freed from the flesh. There was no body, no time, no fear, only a powerful feeling that I was near the center of something colossal. The angel, or whatever that presence of light was, didn't drive me anymore. Now it was as if truth itself pulled me, and when I finally stopped moving, I found myself in a field of absolute silence, a space so pure that any thought seemed too noisy to exist there. And it was in the midst of that silence that I heard a sound. I'm about. It was as if the universe itself was exhaling a note, a low, primitive vibration that came from nowhere and at the same time came from everywhere. A sound that entered not through the ears but through the soul. It did not hurt, he revealed. It was the sound of time breaking apart, as if creation was being realigned. This is the trigger, the voice whispered inside me. It has already begun to sound, and soon, it will be audible to all. The light around it bent. And again, I saw the earth. But now it was divided into two vibrational fields. On one side, cities were immersed in a cold, blue, controlled light, where people walked like sleepwalkers, staring at screens, obeying invisible orders. On the other side, warm, golden, disorganized, and alive light. People were awake, confused, but with their eyes alight. It was as if the world was being split by an invisible line, not geographical but spiritual. And in the midst of this division, a gigantic clock hovered over the planet. But this clock didn't tell time. It told vibrations. Each tick was a collective decision. Each hand, a human emotion. Time, as you know it, will lose its meaning. Because the war will not be about land. It will be about consciousness. At this moment, an event began to form before me. A flash in the east. A sudden movement. In Europe Day, silent collapse in an American city that I recognized but felt different. It was as if poles of power were being rearranged by invisible hands. And then I saw faces. Trump in front of a mirror. But the mirror didn't reflect him. He stared into the void as if he were seeing something he doesn't understand but knows he's part of it. Putin, standing in a snow-covered field, knelt down, took something from the ground, an ancient artifact, and raised it to the sky as an offering, and behind them the angel, or another being like him. They are in their places. The winds are already blowing, but what will come will depend on the frequency of humanity on the day the veil is torn. At that time, a tear opened in the sky of vision, literally. A vertical crack of intense light that expanded slowly, like a luminous wound. I knew without being told that would happen in 2025. And when the tear was complete, nothing would be the same again. I wanted to see more, to know more. But the light intensified so much that my spiritual being began to dissolve, as if it were no longer bearable to see beyond. As if looking at the unnameable had a limit for those who still belong to the world of the living. And it was there, at that limit, that a last sentence was given to me. Not as a sound, but as a mark on the spirit. The trumpet will not be heard by the ears, and it will be felt in the chest. Prepare yourself. My consciousness hovered on the threshold of a portal that seemed made of pure expectation. Everything around me was suspended, like the atmosphere before a lightning strike, an extended moment where the universe held its breath. The tear in the sky was still there, open like a bright wound in the skin of time, and I knew, with a clarity that crushed me, that this was the 2025 key event, an invisible divider that would separate the world into before and after, not by dates but by spiritual density. The angel led me once more. But this time it was not a walk. It was a journey from within, as if I were being taken to the heart of something that could not be named. Suddenly, I was thrown into a landscape that was not of this world. It looked like a city, but made of memory and symbol. The buildings had impossible shapes. The streets were spirals, and the sky wasn't sky. It was a field of living codes, pulsating as if someone had hung the algorithms of human destiny there. In the center, a black tower of energy rose. It was not made of stone nor of steel, it was made of condensed fear. "That's the tower that needs to fall," said the voice. "But it won't fall with bombs. It only collapses when men stop feeding it." And then I saw millions of people trapped by threads of dark energy, like puppets connected to an invisible power source. Each string was a belief, a hatred, an attachment, a trauma. Among them, two threads shone brighter, two poles. Trump, Putin, not as saviors, not as tyrants, but as magnets of archetypal forces. Each pulled crowds to opposite sides of the same spiritual field. They are the drums, but the one who dances is humanity. The tower began to shake. And then the sky burned, not of fire but of light so dense it cut. I saw a crack opens in the sky above the tower, and from that crack a kind of living dawn was shed. But it wasn't beauty, it was judgment. And the scariest thing nobody saw, people kept walking attached to their wires, laughing, fighting, sleeping awake. The angel turned to me. His face was still silent, but his eyes, if they were eyes, carried all the love and all the pain of creation. "You are seeing what is invisible now, but soon many will see it, and what they do with that vision will define the fate of the cycle." The tower finally fell. Not with an explosion, but with silence. He collapsed into himself as if he had remembered it was a lie, and at that moment, the sky turned completely white, a blankness so absolute it erased all questions. I was being pulled back, not by the body, but by the call. Something told me the experiment was ending, but the essential would still be revealed. The veil has been lifted, Aaron. Now you carry the sound of the tearing within you. And then, everything disappeared. But not before I saw the number 1 last time. 2025, written in white fire, a fire that does not destroy, but reveals. The white light that engulfed everything seemed to have no end. I was submerged in it, but there was no heat, no cold, no direction, just absolute presence. A sense that I was part of something much bigger, not as a spectator, but as a cell in a body I had forgotten I belonged to. And then, as if the white had dissolved into form, I was standing in a city that wasn't made of matter. It was made of collective memory, a spiritual city, a place where souls gather before awakening. The buildings did not follow any human architecture. Some looked like libraries made of crystal, others like ancient floating temples. The streets had no floor. They were energy pathways that shaped themselves according to my intention. And the air was liquid consciousness. Each breath brought a knowledge I didn't know I wanted to remember. In the center of the city, there was a circular square with 7 pillars. Each pillar represented something. I saw it immediately. Truth, compassion, courage, discernment, surrender, silence, and justice. There, in the middle of that square, hundreds of souls were gathered, all in silence. Not as if they were waiting, but as if they already knew. And then, among them, I saw them. Trump and Putin again, but not as political figures, not as flesh and blood leaders. They were in their archetypal forms. One represented Orbreaker, the one who breaks down structures so that hidden rot comes to light. The other, the keeper of the enigma, the one who maintains the balance of the hidden until the right time reveals. They didn't speak. They just stood, motionless, like conscious statues. And a new voice, different from the previous one, more ancestral, echoed throughout the space. These figures are projections of a greater intelligence. The war will not be between nations. It will be between dimensions, and the earthly city will mirror what is being decided here. At that time, the sky of the spiritual city began to transform, not in clouds, but in living windows. And through them, I saw different versions of planet Earth, each representing a possible future. In one of them, I saw total collapse, systems falling, leaders fleeing, famine and darkness. In another, I saw multitudes in silence, but not of fear, of reverence, as if an impossible truth had finally been accepted. The world had not become perfect, but it had stopped lying to itself. And then a third window opened, unlike anything else. I saw children leading adults, we languages being unified by empathy, not politics. A faceless figure occupying a throne made of roots and light, an ordinary human being, but with a completely open heart. The time of judgment will not come from above. It will come from within. And 2025 will be the year when the inner choices become visible. The city began to pulse. Souls began to move, as if something was about to begin. I wanted to ask what this was, but there were no more questions. Only certainty. And then the voice concluded, "You are coming back, Aaron, but what you saw here, that will be activated little by little. When you hear the sound of the world breaking, you will know the judgment has begun, but it is not punishment. It is harvest." The city dissolved into light, and my consciousness was pulled hard, back into the tunnel, back into the bend between worlds. But I knew there was still something to be shown. The final revelation was approaching. As my consciousness was pulled out of that city of souls, I felt something new. A soft weight, as if I were carrying an object inside me that wasn't mine. It was knowledge, but not like a book read. It was as if my soul had absorbed entire pages of an ancient truth. Suddenly, I stopped. The space around me was a silent, golden vacuum. No time, no gravity, just expectation. And then he appeared again, the being of light, the same one who had called me by name. But now he was bigger, more defined. His body seemed to be made of fragments of stars, and his presence filled the entire room. He didn't come closer, but his vibration enveloped me like an emotional magnetic field, and without speaking he made me feel, "You will see what has never been shown to a man in the flesh." Then the space opened up, and before me there appeared a floating book. But it wasn't made of paper, it was made of time, of living history. Its pages moved by themselves, written in liquid light, and each letter vibrated like a musical note. It was as if the sound of the universe was written there. This is the record of the ages, and 2025 is written in bold. The pages began to turn, revealing scenes, not of events, but of human intentions that generated events. Every war, every revolution, every collapse, all had a common root, the denial of inner truth. I saw the 2025 page forming. And there she was, not a prophecy, but an equation, an intertwining of choices, collective energies, unhealed traumas. An inevitable boiling point. The earth vibrated at a birthing frequency. Something was about to be born and no one could stop it. The world will not be punished. The voice said within me, it will be revealed. And then, the book opened to the clearest view of the whole experience, a spiritual map of the planet, where each nation was represented by its vibration. Some glowed dark red, others faint blue, and 3 dots blinked with absurd intensity: United States, Russia, Israel. In the center of these 3, a golden spiral pulsed. It was the epicenter of change, the place where everything would meet, not physically, but spiritually. This was where the judgment of the cycle would take place. And then a page tore from the book and floated to me. Not written, blank. That's your part, the being said. The future is not a complete text. It's an interactive book, and your word can affect the next page. I touched that page and was flooded with overwhelming emotion, responsibility, as if my own existence, however common it might be, had any weight in the balance of what was to come. At this moment, the book began to close, like a flower that gathers at the end of the day. The light of the space around it darkened, and the being said for the last time, 2025 is the year in which the book will be reopened by everyone. Many will see, few will understand, but everyone will feel, because there is no way to escape from what already vibrates within the spirit of the world. Everything started to disappear, but I still wasn't back. Something was missing. The final image, the last seed. The light around me began to slowly dim, not like a blackout, but like the closing of a sacred ceremony. I felt like I was reaching the end of that journey, but I knew, with a conviction that tore me apart, that there was still one last image to be shown, something that would seal everything I had seen, and the universe itself seemed to hold its breath for this moment. I was raised up, not as one who ascends, but as one who is led to the highest point of one's own consciousness. There, hovering in absolute silence, a golden room appeared before me, round, gigantic, and in the center of it, a throne. But it was not a throne made for kings, nor for saints. It was a throne made of root, stone, and light, a primordial throne, the throne of consciousness, that which precedes religions, systems, civilizations, and it was empty. This throne, said the angel, now positioned on my right, is the seat of the new cycle, and it has not yet been occupied. The next moment I saw invisible crowds around the throne, spirits, souls, ancient and recent consciousnesses, and they were all waiting for something, the decision, the name, the movement that would activate the 2025 cycle. But none of the faces I saw moved. They couldn't sit up. The throne was not given, it was chosen by vibration. It was then that I saw something floating in the air, a word made of energy, completely illegible to the eyes, but perfectly understandable to the soul. It spiraled around, as if it was looking for the right place to anchor itself. And when it got closer to me, I felt like I was being swallowed by it. The word was consent. Don't control, not conquer. Consent. The world was on the verge of a new cycle, and nothing would be imposed. Everything would be permitted based on the degree of spiritual consent of humanity. It was at that moment that I realized something so profound that I cried, even outside my body. The real war will not be between nations, but between those who want to see and those who do not want to see. I saw the throne begin to emit pulses like a gigantic heart trying to be reborn, and each pulse echoed a question. Are you willing to open your eyes? Are you ready to let go of fear? Do you accept collapse as a prelude to rebirth? I felt these questions were being asked to every living soul on earth, and every response, and even unconscious, was shaping what 2025 would become. The throne was not occupied at that time, but he brightened up, as if someone, somewhere had finally understood what needed to be done. Then the angel touched me, not with hands, but with a presence as sweet as it was unbreakable, and said, "You have seen the essential. Now carry with you the vibration of what you have seen. When you awaken, you will forget the detail, but the call will remain. It will be your compass, and on the right day, the memory will be activated." I began to walk away. The room, the throne, the word, everything dissolved into a field of golden light. But inside me, something had been sealed, like an eternal flame hidden behind the heart. Was coming back, and I knew it, but not like before. Something in me had died forever. It started with a sound, but not a physical sound. It was the sound of existing again, a dull rumble that crossed plains, like the echo of thunder within the womb of time. My spirit began to be compressed back into flesh, and every inch of this crossing was like passing through a tunnel made of memories and detachment. I didn't want to go back, not out of fear, but because he had found there, in that realm between worlds, a lucidity that life never offered. There, everything made sense. Here, everything seemed filtered, muffled, narrow. But something stronger was pulling me, a purpose that I didn't yet understand, but that had already anchored itself in my essence. And then, I felt the first shock of pain. My chest tightened like a door being kicked in. Air rushed into my lungs like liquid fire. My eyes didn't open right away, but the feeling of weight, of flesh, of time, it returned. It was in my body, but something had come back with me. Era the silence. Not the silence of the absence of sound, but the silence sacred. One who remains after the presence of something immeasurable. It was as if the angel was still with me, in some fold of the spirit, watching, waiting. I heard voices, alarms, crying, but they were far away. The closest thing was the pulsing inside me, a new rhythm, as if my heart now beat in 2 dimensions at the same time. And then, one final image fixed itself in my mind, just before I opened my eyes to the physical world. Era the throne. Still, empty, but now surrounded by a growing multitude of small lights, as if thousands of souls were awakening little by little, not leaders, not heroes, but ordinary people, like me, like you. They will occupy the throne together, said the last voice. There will no longer be just one. There will be many who will vibrate as one, and this will be the silent revolution of 2025. Opened my eyes. Cold lights, medical masks, alarms going off. I was back, but not completely. Part of me was still beyond the veil, connected to something that pulses with urgency. Because 2025 will not be an event. It will be a mirror, and each of us will be invited to look within and choose whether to remain blind or to see. I came back to talk about this, and only this. The rest doesn't matter anymore. If you like this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.